during the course of, reading one book at a time or every month. So I came across Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. And then after reading that book, I started, drafting or creating my own why or purpose. And it's to help inspire people to believe that they can be great.
Wow.
Yeah. So I realized that every time I teach, I coach, I mentor someone, that's where I shine. That's how or where I feel excited every time I teach someone.
Emerge Stories is a place where, as the name implies, you are going to hear stories. Stories from people all over the Philippines who have come from many different types of backgrounds, and especially people who have gone through struggles, people who have gone through the challenging parts of life. And I hope that these stories will relate for you in some way, that some of these stories will really land for you because these people have gone through probably just about the same thing you might be going through right now. Welcome back to Emerge Stories. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking to a good friend of mine, Anton Hinolan. And through the years, knowing him, I also used to work with him, I've just really grown to respect Anton in the way that he takes personal ownership of creating himself. Like he's always thinking about how he can learn new things. He really is the epitome and a great example of growth mindset, believing that he can learn anything. I love the way that Anton takes ownership of his responsibilities in life, his relationships, being a father, and he really leans into leadership I've seen him not just lead the people that look up to or maybe report to him, but also even leading his leaders. It's amazing. I just so much admire the way Anton lives, and I hope you guys will also learn from him. I think you're going to enjoy listening to the parts where he talks about the books he's read and exactly how he goes about learning and taking ownership of creating his future self. And today, I want to just also mention one of the ways that I recommend learning better through YouTube and podcasts is make sure you listen on 1.25, 1.5. See if you can gradually accelerate the speed that you listen to these long form interviews. Because they're 45 minutes, right? But you might be able to listen to them in 30 minutes or even less if you speed it up a little bit. So just wanted to share that tip with you. Hope you guys enjoy this. Please, if this inspires you or somehow makes a difference for you, please do share the content we're creating. And we really want your feedback. So if you think there's something we can improve, we want to hear it. Put it in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for being here. Let's jump in. Welcome, Anton, to the Emerge Philippines podcast and interview series. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me, bro.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation. And I know you're joining us from Cebu, but you're originally from Metro Manila. That's where you grew up. Tell us where you're from.
Yeah, so I was born in Bacolod City, Negros Occidental. And when I was 4, my family moved to Manila. I grew up there, studied there, worked for like 12 years there, then moved here in Cebu back in 2016.
Okay. So you've been in Cebu for 8 years almost, huh? 7 years.
Almost.
Yeah.
7 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So the parts of your story I'd really love to hear about. From what I know, you grew up kind of in a middle-class family, as far as I know. And you told me your dad was working abroad as you're growing up.
Yeah. So I came from an OFW family, as they say, right? So when I was 7 years old, my dad worked in Bahrain, then Saudi Arabia, Cyprus. So most of my, growing up years, I haven't been with my dad that much. So yeah, I would say majority of the Filipinos can relate to my experience. Like I'm really excited every year, every December when my dad comes home for a 1 month vacation. So yeah, that's basically my life growing up. Came from an OFW family.
Right. And now, I guess start us also off with what's just a real quick preview or glimpse into what your life is like now. What are you doing in life and what are you proud of? Where are you at now in life?
Oh, wow. Okay. So right now I'm part of a company here in Cebu City. So they've been in Luzon for like 12 years already. And then they're trying to expand here in Cebu. So I'm building a team here in Cebu as a sales manager.
Nice.
So it's importing company.
And I know
the business of importation.
Awesome. And you and your wife are kind of quite entrepreneurial from what I've seen. What are some of the other things that you're working on? Headline stuff.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. So yeah, that's our goal. My wife and I, Nika. So every year we have to look for start a project. So started back, I think 3 years ago during the pandemic when we started the microgreens business. And the last year, we started our first Airbnb studio unit. Then we're looking for more.
Every year you start a project. That's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah.
Might have to steal that from you or borrow it. I don't know. Very cool. And you have a son. He's what, 4 now?
He's a 4 now.
4.
Turning 5.
And another one on the way.
Oh, no way, yeah.
Awesome.
4.
So let's kind of paint a picture of how you know, some of the decisions you made along the way. Was the path that you chose, did it really line up with what your parents imagined for you?
No, absolutely not. Because my parents are both employees. They're not really that entrepreneurial. Although my mom had a variety store before, but she's really not that entrepreneurial. She's okay making enough for the family. And when I started, reading books about business, so that's how my interest towards, starting up my own business started.
When was that? When did you start reading books about business?
Probably before I answer that, Eli, I'm not really a fan of books.
Before?
Yeah, before. I love basketball. I'm an active person. So most of the time I don't read. I hate books before. And when I graduated college, I stopped reading for I'd say 5-10 years. And I realized that, I wasn't learning anymore. That's how I started, reading. And actually my goal right now is to finish at least one book every month. And my mindset is I'm reading this book, which I'm about to share or teach to other people. So that's that's my mindset.
The reason I've invited you here to be interviewed is because I know you pretty well. And I know you to be someone that is really dedicated to, you've taken a ton of ownership of your own learning path, and the habits of learning that I've seen are really impressive. That's the main reason I wanted to invite you here to have a conversation and share how that happened. So I'd really like to talk about how you went from being obsessed with basketball and hating reading to realizing you weren't learning and then actually building a habit of reading and learning. Because I think many people are like that. Even I've experienced it myself, even now, though I know the value of reading. Sometimes I'm like, getting the habit started again is really hard, even though I know it. But how did you start? Like, say you realized you weren't learning. What made you decide books were the answer? What books did you choose? And how did you start building the habit?
Yeah. Before I answer that, bro, like during the course of, reading one book at a time or every month. So I came across Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. And then after reading that book, I started, drafting or creating my own why or purpose. And it's to help inspire people to believe that they can be great.
Wow.
Yeah. So I realized that every time I teach, I coach, I mentor someone, that's where I shine. That's how or where I feel excited every time I teach someone. So I started just one book that I really love. The first book that I really love. It's a book by Andrew Matthews, Follow Your Heart. So
first time I'm hearing of that, I think.
Yeah. Follow Your Heart. It's a very simple, easy to read book.
Okay.
And then because of the joy, the happiness that I had from reading that book, my interest towards reading more books started because of that one particular book.
Okay. I really want to focus in on this because, let's say someone is looking at their lives, looking at themselves and feeling kind of stuck or not making enough progress, don't feel really good about themselves or their lives or whatever it is. And they know they want to change something, but then you don't really have the habits of doing it. Right. So this was you maybe to some degree. Yeah. And then you decide to read this book. First of all, how did you find that book? Like what made you choose that one?
Someone recommended that book.
So your recommendation, which is the way it always works. I mean, that's how humans learn, right? We see someone that we respect to some degree, they give us a recommendation. We like, all right, whatever, let's try it. And then we try it. Okay. So you read this book. It was pretty easy to read. And you said it made you feel some really good feelings, but can we dig into what were those feelings? What do you think were the good feelings got from reading it?
My outlook towards life, how I react to any situations. Like one of the examples or the learnings that I got from that book is, for example, if you are stuck in a traffic light or a red light, let me just remember that particular section. Yeah. Okay. So can't remember 100% the story, but you know that it's traffic, but you still decided to go out and then drive,
Right.
So now you basically, the lesson there is you don't have the reason to complain, basically. So, oh, okay. So
Like taking ownership, or
yeah, taking ownership
instead of
or
blaming the world or
blaming the
wishing it was
world. Yeah,
different.
correct, correct, correct.
Got it. Okay. Nice. So then you started getting these new ideas of how to observe
Sir,
the
correct.
things happening in your life, the things happening around you or to you or whatever, and then starting to realize that you could choose a different response than you had been.
Response. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then how did that make you feel when you realized you had this new way of looking at things?
I share that with my dad and my mom, those learnings that I got from that particular book. I even bought two books for my mom and for my dad. And, just to, because I know my dad he's an engineer. So he's really a technical person and it's very pessimistic.
Okay.
And when I realized the change in attitude towards life that I got out of that book, I realized
Yeah.
that I have to share this with my dad.
Yeah. And then,
And yeah, he read the book, he finished the book. And there's a time when we were driving, I was driving with my dad, and then I realized that, oh, there's a change, just a
nice.
little change towards how he sees things, how he treats, how he reacts. So there's a positive change that came out from, reading that particular book.
Awesome. And like, how old were you when you first when you read that book?
I was, I think,
Approximately.
28. 28.
Okay.
Now I'm 38. That was 10 years ago.
Okay. 28. I know a lot of people, they're like, oh, I'm already almost 30. I'm getting old. Like, I'm responding often saying, I was like 37, 38, 39, 40 before I even really started focusing on growing myself, like learning, reading a lot of books, trying to change who I was. And
It's never too late to start, right?
totally agree. That's awesome. And it sounds like you're one of the things you've chosen is whenever you learn something, you want to not just be excited about how you can change yourself, but also help other people.
Yeah, yeah,
That's amazing.
correct. Every time I meet someone new, so I always recommend Start with Why book by Simon Sinek.
Nice. That is a really nice book. So you don't recommend the book that you started with was a very easy read and it really
Yeah, easy read.
changed you, and it also made a difference for your father. How come you don't recommend that one first?
Actually, I have a list of books that just right now I'm building a daily sales routine for success. What I call guideline for the team for my team.
Yeah.
So I've added a section there for my recommended books, and it's one of those books that I highly recommend.
Nice. All right. So what would you say that, you read that first book, it really gave you a good feeling. You shared it with your dad. It made a difference in your life. It started making a difference in other people's lives. And then did you just instantly build a habit of reading from then on out? And just
Yeah, yeah. There are times
organically?
when I skip, and then especially if life happened, and there are times that I finish the book not after 3 months. So yeah, but I do my best to finish
Nice.
one book every month.
So that's been a major way that you've continued to change yourself and grow yourself.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct, correct.
And you said that you like to coach and mentor people, I guess people on your team, et cetera. And you said that you decided that your purpose is around helping to inspire people that they can be great.
Yeah,
I think that's so amazing because that's like actually my core reason that I wanted to create this channel in the first place. Back 7, 8 years ago, I got this idea that like I really wanted to help inspire people to, I wanted to break the story in people's minds where they say they can't.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'd be really interested to hear, what are the things that maybe the limiting beliefs, or what do you see as the biggest blockers for people to see their greatness, to be able to believe what they can do? What do you see blocking people most often?
Yes, you mentioned like their limiting beliefs. You
Such as,
remember when I'm not sure if you recommended me the mindset book by
I
Carol
think so.
Dweck.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
I think
fixed
so.
mindset and growth mindset. Coming from a traditional school before, right? Like we most of the time we label students as, oh, this kid is talented, so he or she is a natural. But after reading that book, I realized that everything is learnable. Everything in life is learnable. You just have to, put in the work. You have to be passionate about it. And if you're lucky, you can, make money out of it. But that's not really your main goal, is to make money, because money is just a byproduct of whatever you're doing that you're passionate about. It's just money's just a byproduct. If you know again, you have to start with your why. You have to identify your why, and everything else will follow. So there, I don't want to say most people, but majority, the people that I know, they have this limiting beliefs that, oh, I'm already old. I'm already 30 years old. I'm already 25.
Yeah.
There's no time for me, to study, learn, or whatever. There are those, limiting beliefs that they always, carry with them.
Right.
And
These stories we
yeah,
repeat to ourselves, right?
correct.
I usually start with I can't or I don't.
Oh, I remember this telling you before, like having the growth mindset, bro. Like always add the word yet.
Exactly.
Remember
Yeah.
that?
Yep.
Yeah. So, like for example, okay,
I'm not good at that yet.
yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Like for example, if you ask me, Anton, do you know how to surf? Oh, I don't know that yet, but if I'm interested, I'll start. And then when I decided that okay, I'll be starting to learn how to surf, that's my first hour. And I always believe it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. So yeah, that's my what I call my mindset. Every time I encounter problem, a challenge, or if we want to start something. So yeah, that's my belief.
What I've discovered, people talk a lot about finding your passion. And in my experience, I've always been most passionate about things when it started improving dramatically. So it's like at the very beginning, we don't feel good at something and it's kind of hard. But if you just do it a little bit more, whatever it is, if it's a sport or it's art or it's, any skill,
And yeah,
you don't know what you're doing at first. It feels difficult, but then you start to learn a little
yep,
bit. And you're like, oh, I'm getting better at this pretty quickly. And then you get better and better. And then it starts to
yeah,
stack. It's that really steep increase in skill or, learning that I love the most. I think that's how
yeah,
humans are wired.
correct.
10,000 hour thing. It's been proven to be a little bit of a myth just for
Yeah, yeah,
record. And that's if you want to be world class, if you want to be Tiger Woods of golf or something, right? But really, I think to get into that really steep learning phase where it's fun, it actually usually only takes a couple hours, maybe a couple days. Like you start like, wow, I'm getting way better at this. And it starts to feel good. But we never discover that if we don't engage. We have to go
correct.
try new things. What's your method of choosing what to learn next?
I think I have a list of book recommendations from friends, colleagues, and before buying or getting uh, a book, I check if that's something that I want to learn right now. So just to share with you right now, I'm having a good time reading Ryan Holiday's books.
Yeah,
Yes,
they're really good.
about yeah, yeah.
Which
So
ones are you reading
right
now?
now, I just finished Obstacles the Way.
Yeah, that's an amazing book.
Yeah,
That book was super meaningful for me. Yeah. So it sounds, like through this conversation, like books are really maybe the main learning channel for you. Is that fair? Do you use
yeah.
anything else? Do you use YouTube or podcasts or any other ways of learning?
True. Yeah, there are times
Not
or
much.
YouTube. Yep. Also Udemy.
Udemy.
I'm like, for example, I started an Airbnb business, right? So
Yeah.
I got a course from Udemy just to learn how to start, the Airbnb business.
Have you noticed that people, especially maybe, I think, the Philippines internet has not been totally accessible for all that long, compared to where I grew up. Like probably I started using the internet in the late 90s consistently, but search engines came online, in the early 2000s, and they've gotten better since. Have you noticed that there are people that go through life without really exploring their curiosity when Google is right there and can tell us stuff all the time? And did you build a habit of just getting really fast at, if you're curious,
Yeah.
Googling it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In my teams, like we always have this joke that if they're going to ask me, Google it. Try to Google it first.
Exactly.
And I always encourage them before asking me a question, think of the possible answers before, chatting me. Hey, Anton, what's your take about this subject? Whatever. You have to add or at least add 3 questions. That's how you train or that's how you develop your critical thinking, right?
3 questions. So like give an example. If you're saying if you have a question, then you should add
Three
three,
possible answers.
3 possible answers. Got it.
Here's what I think. For example, option 1, blah, 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 option 2, option
Mm.
3. But
So
here's my take, something like that.
So you're saying if somebody on your team wants to make a decision and they're coming to you saying, what do you think I should do? that you're asking them to present to you some proposed
Yeah.
choices,
Choices.
something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, I
Correct.
totally agree. Yeah. If people bring something to me where it happens all the time. It's like they haven't put any thought into it yet. I'm like, have you Googled it? Have you looked on
Mm,
YouTube? Have you come up with your proposed solution? And I think it's a really important thing to learn. It's like very nuanced. It's not asking somebody their opinion is not good. It is. It's also a skill.
Right.
I just like Googling things is a skill. Knowing how to getting better at the questions that we phrase. Because if you ask
Correct.
Google, you may want to know this thing, but if you haven't really thought about how to ask for what you want, you're
Yeah.
not going to get a good result, right?
Correct.
Have you found the formulation of questions to be important for your learning?
Yeah, absolutely. Like every time I come across, a particular subject or topic that interests me, I always, Google it and look for books related to those topics. And good thing about it is that with my wife, Nika, so she's a bookworm. I'm not sure if I've shared this before with you, bro. Like she read the whole encyclopedia
Really?
when she was like 7 years old, 8 years old, whole
Wow.
set of encyclopedia. Because I think they don't have, at the time, they don't have a TV.
Yeah.
So most of the time she just goes to her grandma's house. Then her grandma has a full set of encyclopedia. So that's how her interest with reading started. And since Nika has that passion about reading, so she shares that with me. And most of our conversations start from, I read this particular book or I came across this, post, whatever. And yeah, that's for me, that communication between my wife and I, it's how our relationship, gets stronger and stronger every day, I'd say.
So you guys are constantly learning new things, and then you have
Yeah,
something to talk about, something to share.
correct. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's really key. There's a lot of important skills to build if we want to have amazing relationships, but having ideas coming in all the time is just a really good way to have meaningful conversations with people, constantly learning. I love it. Let's kind of go back for a few minutes to because there, like you were saying to me before, obviously there's so many people in the Philippines who grew up in a family where someone either went abroad, like one of your parents moved abroad, or everybody in the family thinks the best thing that you could ever do if you could achieve it would be to go abroad, get a degree that will allow you to get a job abroad or maybe study abroad or whatever it would be. So what led you to decide otherwise? Why did you not do that when you probably could have?
yes. I have a lot of relatives in the US, and every time they visit us here in the Philippines, the expectations, I would say majority of the Filipinos there, the expectations is, oh, okay, this relative will treat us with whatever pasalubong we call it. Pasalubong, give us pasalubong and all.
Of course.
But I know the hardship that they had prior to, having their vacation here in the Philippines. I know that, for example, I have this cousin. I know that she has at least 2 to 3 jobs in order
In the
to
US.
sustain, yeah, in the US, in order to
Mm,
sustain her lifestyle.
yeah.
And yeah, most of the time, if someone visits us here in the Philippines, I don't ask them or I don't let them treat us. So it's always, I know your life there, so we're good here. So no, yeah, that's
So you,
basically. Go ahead.
that relates for me because I've had a chance to be around, I grew up in the US, but I had a chance to be around people from many different economic statuses or
Status,
whatever
yeah,
levels, right? And the thing I noticed through spending a lot of time with really, very wealthy people and fairly wealthy people is that they typically were not happier. If anything, on average, I think they were less happy. It's like the more people were trying for material success, like the odds
correct,
Seemed
correct,
seemed like seemed like the percentage of people that were happy was lower among those people, and yeah, so it sounds like you're seeing a similar pattern and learning from it instead of just following the assumed, "Oh, well, it's gonna be better there because," but you actually saw this pattern of people where it looked like their life wasn't necessarily better than yours, right? Or better than you.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
totally agree with that. Yeah,
And my wife and I, bro, like Nika and I, we know the meaning of enough for us right now. This amount of money is okay for us to, to sustain
for
whatever
living.
we have for a living expenses, and anything in excess that we get is basically what we use to bless more people. That's our mentality right now. Like we know the meaning of enough. So anything in excess. That's how we can, use to help more people. And that's the joy in, we find joy every time we help people, like, especially here in Cebu. Right now, as you know, bro, we have at least 4 people helping us here in the house and also in the business. So
Like creating
yeah,
jobs.
creating jobs.
Yeah.
Only 4, but that's 4 families. Imagine if Filipinos have that mentality as well. Like know the right amount for them, the enough, the meaning of
Yeah.
enough,
Yeah.
and anything in excess, use it to, to bless more people or help more people.
It's very common for people to feel like, yeah, sure, I would love to help other people, but I don't have enough for me, right? So this reminds me of Give and Take by Adam Grant, just like the
Yeah,
reciprocity ideas, right? But
correct.
becoming a giver when you don't feel like people who think they don't have abundance, they think they don't have more than what they need,
Yeah,
typically are not yet focusing on giving or helping other people. And what I believe, and I think what you believe, is that you don't have to wait until you've created abundance for yourself. If you actually flip around and say, my life is here for service, that's actually
right.
a better way to get to the point where you have abundance, right? It's a better way to create
Yeah,
abundance for yourself is to just create
yeah,
value and give. I know you well enough to take a liberty to say that because I think that's how we both believe. Because I see the way I hear what you're saying right now, and I see the way you live. But how did you develop that approach to life? Because that is not the typical philosophy of most people. How did you
yes.
do?
Yeah,
What,
okay.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because based on experience, man, like the more people you help, like that's the funny thing with money, man. Like the more money you give away, the more it will, come back to you without even realizing it. The more blessings that you will get.
Does it matter how and where you give it away?
No, it doesn't matter, man.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
So this idea, right? There's a lot of people you would say this idea to, and they'd be like, "You're crazy. It doesn't make any
yeah,
sense."
yeah,
So where'd you get the theory, and how did you start to believe it?
yeah. This is actually the ongoing conversation with my wife. Like, you know what? Our motivation, to earn more is, to help more people, basically. And the more we help, the more people we help, the more blessings that we receive. And that's, I think, the law of, if you're religious, the law of God, the law of the universe. It's a cycle and it's a lesson that we have to, to realize. Like the purpose of us humans here is to acquire the money, the wealth that we can acquire so that we can bless more people. Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting that you've chosen that approach. And while I'm not sure I measure everything through money or through physical things, I'm not saying you measure everything that way, of course, but
Money or scale or talent, bro. Like,
whatever you can acquire, it's
yeah,
for the service of others, right?
correct,
Something like that.
correct.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing I've come to discover is like, I really do believe that life is just so much more meaningful and enjoyable and rewarding when we realize we are part of the human family, like we're global citizens. And if we can think about what can I do to make the world around me better, it's only going to serve, it'll just come back. Like people will see that and it will always come back. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
correct, correct.
I love you. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, it's just, yeah, I remember just a phrase in the Bible or a verse in the Bible. I always remember this word: pressed down, shaken, and overflowing. Something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Nice.
The blessings. Yeah.
All right. So I want to ask about one more thing, one more line of thinking and philosophy or
Go.
experiences as before we wrap up in your journey of growth. Because since I've known you, I've seen you really grow yourself so much and just be constantly learning and constantly evolving who you are. And I now see you living it looks like you guys are really happy and you're thriving and living this really nice life that I think most people would look at and say, wow, I would love to live that way. It's like, you're not driving Mercedes. You're not showing off anything. You're not like, I'm not interviewing you because you're somebody that I see as super wealthy or something. I see you living a really fulfilling and blessed life. So I think that's
Yeah.
amazing. I presume, or my hypothesis is that people don't grow if they don't do things they're uncomfortable with. And I would love to hear some
Correct.
stories. I would love to hear some stories of like where you've intentionally done things that were scary or things you were really uncomfortable with, or any parts of life where you just have a choice of leaning into the stuff you're scared of that led to growth.
Then before I answer that, bro, like on top of the learnings that I got from books, it's also I associated myself with the mentors such as you, man. Like I remember you probably around 2018. We had that, I don't know, a company event at the time. And then you told us if given an opportunity, as long as you're not going to die, you have to take it. You have to take it. Something like that.
You doing
Those
scary
lines.
things?
Yeah, scary things.
Yeah. So like doing something scary as long as it's not a gun or a lion or a fire, something, as long as it's not going
Yeah,
to kill you,
gonna kill you. Yeah.
you should do
So
it.
yeah, that's my mantra. Like I want to learn more. I'm excited to learn more. But then again, I have my priorities. But that's basically my point of view, or my mindset. Every time there's something that I'm interested at. So as long as I'm not gonna die, then I'll try it.
So you built a habit of looking for things that make you the kind of scary things that you initially want to shy away from. Or can you give an example? Just anything that you've chosen to do that led to learning that was scary at first?
Like last year, start of 2022, I challenged myself because at the time I was already running or jogging every other day, just 2 kilometers every other day. It's really not that consistent. And then I challenged myself 2022, I'll start running every day for 3 kilometers. And yeah, there are times that I missed a day, but it's okay. But I saw my progress, man. The improvement, my health, my energy, and that's the reason why I'm doing it, still doing it until now. And I'm not planning to, stop because joy that I got from, running, it's really, it helped me to become, I would say, energetic, passionate. And that's the approach that I have or I apply, especially if I have projects. You have to push yourself. You're trained for this. Like you've been running for more than a year. You've been trained for that. Like to always push yourself. And there are times that if you have projects, work projects, like, I don't want to do this anymore. You know what, Anton? You've trained for this. You've trained to finish this, right? So you have to finish that. So that helped me a lot. Running helped me a lot.
Nice. Yeah. I think some of the basics, like just having a morning routine or
Yeah,
getting consistent with exercise, these things, we don't realize how much they change us. They change our energy and the way our brain works, make us happier. It's really incredible.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing everything, everything you've shared so far today and just taking the time to share your stories. I guess I'll leave with this question. What is something about yourself? So if you think of yourself as both the sculptor and the clay and you want to mold the future Anton, like what's something you want to see about yourself in the future, maybe a year or more than that from now, that you're trying to create this new version of yourself in the future?
Okay. For some, it's going to be just, very simple, very basic. What I'm trying to be is to become the best father for my son. That's all. If anyone outside or than my son gets inspired with whatever I'm doing, then it's just a bonus. Because basically, I
Nice.
want my son to be proud of me or to at least follow me. Yeah, just to be the best father for my son.
What are a few of the ways that you imagine doing that? Like what does a great dad look like for you?
Great dad.
I mean,
Oh,
what's your version? What do you think you need to do to be a great father for him in your mind? So he would follow you.
supportive father. I would say for a career, I want him to try anything. And I'll just be, I'm not how do you say that, a helicopter parent. No,
Protective.
not like that. A
Yeah, yeah,
protective,
yeah.
a stage dad. No, I'm not like that. Like if he wants to try this, I'll try. I look for a class, to hone
Or
his skills
beautiful.
more.
Yeah, love it.
So I'm just there to support him in whatever he wants to do in life.
That's the philosophy that I've taken, is not to form a picture in my mind of who I think my kids should be, because then they can't disappoint me, and
Yeah,
it's a crappy feeling if you think you can disappoint your parents, and
correct, correct.
if you think they have an opinion of what you should be doing. So yeah, just figuring out how to support what they want to experience, what they want to learn. I think that's an amazing one. And I would also say, from my opinion, something I chose is that I would rather show my kids an example of continuing to learn and grow forever, because I think a lot of parents, they sacrifice so much for their kids, or they get to
Yeah,
their
correct.
20s or whatever, and they kind of just stop growing. And if I could ask, my parents did a lot of things I appreciate, but if I could have wished for one thing, it was that they would keep growing, because I couldn't learn from them after a certain point because they weren't growing anymore.
Yeah,
And so I think what you're doing of just continuing to invest in yourself, growing and learning all the time, it's like the best example you could ever have for a kid. So
Yeah,
keep up the good work.
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, man. Thank you, man.
Cool. Well, thanks, Anton, for being here. And
Welcome, man.
yeah,
Yeah. And thank you, bro. I remember before 2022 ended, I thank everyone, my mentors, people who, inspired me. So yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for everything, bro. Thank you for showing me what's possible. And yeah, I see you as not only as a friend, but one of my mentors as well. So yeah, thank you. And keep on inspiring people, bro.
same to you. Yeah, I know you know the feeling of if something you learn that you can pass it on and then somebody else takes it and runs with it. Obviously, it's you who chose to take anything I said and run with it, but also I just got it from somebody else. So I think I'm just a channel, that things go through.
Yes.
And you also are doing that for other people. So I think this conversation reminded me how focused you are on inspiring other people. And I would love to see what we can do together in the future in that way.
Sure thing, man. Looking forward.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for this and looking forward to seeing,
Welcome, bro. Thank you.
hopefully this conversation will also be inspiring for people.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Thank you, bro.
Thank you so much for listening to this interview on Emerge Stories. We really hope that something here sparked your curiosity or maybe helped you think about something in your life just from a little bit of a different angle or perspective, maybe opened up your mind to something you might be able to do in your life to take more ownership of your own learning and growth. That's the goal of this show. So please join our community, like and share, and tell other people about these stories if they're meaningful for you. And thanks so much for being here.